Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and today it's our grand infield preview. That's right. We're going to go through the busts, the sleepers, the must-haves, all of the names you need to know for the guys on the inside of the diamond. That's right. We're going to get a catcher, first base, second, third, and shortstop. And to help us do it today is, of course, the Welsh, who is contractually obligated to be here. And our good friend Frank Stampfl is back again. Roto_Frank on Twitter. You know him from the Fantasy Baseball Today pod and all his work at CBS. Frankie boy, fresh off the Super Bowl. It's time to turn the page to baseball, ain't it?
Yes, it is. I love this time of year, too. You just start to feel things change. Spring training is approaching, pitchers and catchers. We got the WBC coming up in a couple of weeks. It's a great time. Lots of studying going on, position previews, all that fun stuff. Happy to be here. Two of my favorite people, Joey P and the Welsh. Let's go. Let's do it.
Did you pull wait, Joe, was this like a I'm just here so I don't get fined type of thing? Like, hey,
pretty much. Well, I was going to ask you, have you declared yet, Welsh, your allegiance for the WBC? Are you playing this year? Have you, or are you just a rooting interest?
Well, I'm going to go for Merca. It's always Merca.
Okay, always
my rooting interest. And Merca, it will be here locally here in Phoenix. So I think I'm going to try to get out to a game or two. Even I've been told a practice or two might be open. So kind of would like to go see Goldie and Arenado and go see some of the fun stuff of that whole team put together. But maybe it's not Goldie. Maybe it's Peter.
I always used to root for the Italian team because I always feel like, the hand gestures, the third base coach are always the most intense. I always feel like that's the one I want to go for. So today we're going to go ahead and break it all down for you. And don't forget, obviously, when we've got going on here, Fantasy Pros, amazing things happening. The Draft Wizard open for business. The cheat sheet creator is open for business. FantasyPros.com/Draft Wizard. You can create your cheat sheets with Frank's rankings, Welsh's rankings, mine, or a hybrid of all of them and yours. Again, you get any expert you want with the projections to customize. Use that cheat sheet creator today. Get your mock draft on. Again, FantasyPros.com/Draft Wizard. All right, gentlemen, let's kick things off here. We'll start with the catcher position. We'll start with the sleepers here. Let's start with you, Frank, since you are our guest today. Who's your sleeper catcher in 2023?
Yeah, so I'm going pretty far down the list here. This is someone you might want to target in a two-catcher league, and it is Logan O'Hoppe, a prospect with the Los Angeles Angels. Monster season in the minors last year, 283 batting average, 416 on base. This guy has a phenomenal eye. He's going to reach base at a high clip. Hits for a lot of power, too. 26 home runs in 104 games in the minors last year. Got 5 games in at the end of the season with the Angels. And considering that division, it's a pretty tough one. They've got to go up against the Astros, the Mariners. I believe the Angels need to field their best team from opening day, and that includes Logan O'Hoppe. So I think he's up on an opening day roster, and I think he can give us a pretty good contribution this year in his rookie season as a second catcher, not as my first. So I do like him quite a bit as a sleeper.
Note to self, Frank. Stop playing two-catcher leagues. No fun. No bueno. Don't do this to yourself. Yeah. Don't do it. All right. Welsh, who is your catcher sleeper for this season?
Fun thing, by the way, in my startup Atano draft, I got Logan O'Hoppe as my second catcher in there. A little $4 in a two-catcher league.
Logan O'Hoppe. You guys are so in sync, so adorable.
Shout out that. I'm going to go with Tyler Stevenson. This is a guy that I think on the back end can be a catcher one, is barely being valued as a catcher one, really because of all the time that was missed. A lot of hard hit, good contact, hit 319 in limited games last year. It was just a little under 200 at bats, 6 homers, but 319, 370 to a 482 slug, improved on the launch angle off of the previous year. Obviously, health is going to be the most important thing, but there's a lot of opportunity in Cincinnati. The ball flies a little bit better. I think he can hit in a really prime spot in that lineup, and he's just kind of a forgotten name. So sleeper I'm going to have is Tyler Stevenson and try to have him on as many teams as possible.
All right, my catcher to not sleep on is William Contreras, who is now with the Milwaukee Brewers. Ooh, I love this ballpark for home runs. Always been a fan. He had 20 last year in 97 games with the Braves. Now he moves on. Also 278, not something to forget about. You're looking for some cheap power here in those deeper single catcher leagues. I think William Contreras could be that guy. He's going to give you some batting average too in the roto categories. I like this player. Comes from a good pedigree as well. And switching gears to the first base side, my sleeper is Andrew Vaughn of the Chicago White Sox. Finally, a clear path. People forget Andrew Vaughn really didn't have any time in the minor leagues to develop. They basically threw him right out there to the Wolves because he was such a highly regarded college player. They thought the transition would be okay, and it has been. I'm expecting Vaughn to take that step forward this year. I think people really have not cut him enough slack in the last few years about how hard it is to learn on the job at the big league level. But now with Jose Abreu gone, I think Andrew Vaughn is a player that I really like in terms of where he's going in drafts. He does have the flexibility in many leagues to first base and outfield, but I think Andrew Vaughn is ready to take that next step forward and could be a breakout guy. I've talked about him before. Welsh, you've done all of the infield previews for the Fantasy Baseball Black Book 2023. This should be right in your wheelhouse. By the way, available on Amazon right now. Number one in fantasy sports and number two in baseball books. Just want to say, shout out, Welsh. It's all because of you. So who is your first baseman that is a sleeper for you this year after all that work you did?
Masterful writing that I do. Well-known scholar and writer, the Welsh.
Yes, you're the Ernest Hemingway of baseball profiles. That's what
there's one thing I'm known for. Well, one thing I definitely am known for is as far as this player, you guys both know this guy would probably come out of my mouth. He could qualify at multiple positions. Actually, probably better to put it his other spot, but we'll just do it here. It's Jose Miranda. Talked a lot about him this offseason. One of my favorite stats I think I've mentioned here once or twice is just how in 0-2 counts, he was one of the best hitters last year in 0-2 counts, hitting over 300 in 2 or 3 different spots. And I'm talking about like 0-2, 1-2, 2-2, better than Mookie Betts in certain spots. So rookie year, so there's a lot of that's hard to build off of when people look at like a 270 batting average versus like a 247 XBA, but he makes tons of contact, doesn't strike out, walks, has sneaky power, almost hit that 110 EV marker last year, 109, just about averaging a 90 exit velocity overall. Good launch angle. This is a great hitter. I think he could sneak into 25 homers, and he just keeps kind of going later, qualifies at 2 spots. So give me Jose Miranda. That's a sleeper for sure.
All right, Frank, the guy you got sleeper at first base had a pretty big home run total last year, but you think that boy's still not getting enough respect?
Roddy Tellez. Come on, man. 35 home runs, one of 10 players with 35 plus home runs last year. And this offensive environment has changed. We've got the dead end ball. We've got humidors in every park. Power is harder to come by. And I actually trust the power for Roddy Tellez. Underperformed the batting average by quite a bit, too. He only hit 219. His XBA was 252. He lost, I believe it was 15 hits to the shift last year. We've got shift restrictions coming in, so hopefully that can help the batting average get back on track as well, and made a clear, conscious decision to change the launch angle. 45% fly ball rate was a career high for him, 12.9% barrel rate, 4th among qualified first basemen. So I do buy the power. I think it's legit. I think we get 30 plus home runs, and I think it would probably get closer to a 250 batting average as well.
All right, let's continue on with second base. Now, the guy on your list, Frank, here at second base is actually somebody Welsh is a little afraid of, but you see him as a sleeper. It's Jonathan India of the Reds. So let's talk about him.
Yeah, so basically, I'm just giving him a mulligan. I think he suffered that hamstring injury in April last year, and he was never the same. If you look at what he did back 2 years ago, 269, 21 homers, the 12 steals, won the National League Rookie of the Year, and obviously gets all of his at-bats and plate appearances in Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. So one of the reasons that the Welsh like Tyler Stevenson, that's part of the reason why I like Jonathan India as well. He doesn't impact the ball all that hard. I get that, but he pulls the ball a lot. He puts it in the air, and those things combined with playing in Cincinnati usually work out pretty well. So I'm just kind of giving a mulligan for last year, age 26 season. I think he gets back on track. 20 homers, double-digit steals. I like India.
Frank Stampfl, so much more forgiving than you, Welsh. So much more forgiving. Gave him a mulligan, and he used your own Cincinnati Red logic against you.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I don't hate it. My problem with him, we talked about it in the Bust episode, was just like, I think we did. India just is coming at it, not a bad ADP, but I feel like he's being put in that spot where everyone's like, hey, man, second base really sucks, but if you lose out, go get Jonathan India. Jonathan India also wasn't hitting the ball hard at all. And I'm afraid that that bad contact woes, it's a good point with the injury and giving him a mulligan, and maybe he's going to come back to it. But I'm afraid poor contact skills are going to carry back over. You're going to stop stealing again. The power's not going to be there, and you'll have passed on really good second base options, or at least sneaky second base options, kind of like the guy that I have on the list in Josh Rojas. Now, Josh Rojas, a little bit of a homer for me as a Diamondback fan. You could see it that way, and he's not the sexiest of all options. But the one thing I think he does better than a Jonathan India is he could provide you that more elite category in stolen bases while hitting higher in the lineup. He stole 23 last year as the Diamondbacks started stealing more bases, hit 270, really low chase rate. He increased his max EV by 5 miles per hour, almost at 110. He had hit 104 the previous 2 years. Launch angle was up as well. And if he's going to be hitting at the top of the lineup, if you're going to get 20, 25 stolen bases again in this environment, even when I'll take 25 stolen bases and 10 homers with Rojas over 20 homers and 5 stolen bases from India. So I think Rojas is coming at a better deal, and he has that third base eligibility as well. But I acknowledge, like, India might end up like really winning people some leagues if he completely bounces back, because his ADP, like Rojas, pretty low.
Yeah. All right. Indeed. As we continue to move on here for second base, again, different qualifiers and different things. Vaughn Grissom's that guy for me if you can get him at second base in your league, because you're looking at a player who 315 minor league batting average, 400 OBP in 227 minor league games. I mean, this guy is just another in the long line of prospects from the Atlanta Braves system. I mean, the international scouting and just the regular scouting of the Atlanta Braves system is just, it's off the charts good. You can always count on these guys. They let Dansby Swanson go. More on Dansby Swanson, spoiler alert, later in this show, coming up, courtesy, I believe, of Frank Stampfl. So, but Grissom, to me, I think is this guy that you're just going to plug and play, and he's going to be a very good player right away. I've seen him already working, putting that overtime in, and that's the kind of worker he is too, which is very important. My third baseman sleeper is Josh Young. Welsh and I have talked about this guy a lot, so I'm not going to take up too much time. I think this is my mulligan guy. If India is Frank's, this is my mulligan. The guy was hurt. Let's not grade him on last year. Let's not grade him on when he tried to come back at the end of the year either. It was a bad season for him. Again, minor leagues, the numbers are there. The situation is much better, I think, improved year over year in terms of what he has around him. So I really think he's actually going to be working in offense. It's going to give him some lineup protection, which is going to be really nice. He doesn't have any pressure on him. He's got the job. All he's got to do is just go out there and have a healthy season. And if he does that, I think he's going to be a huge sleeper. He's going to help you out. It's got some pop. He's going to hit for some good batting average too. So the roto guys, you like him. If you're in points leagues, you like him because I think he's got a lot of that. It's just a matter of if the league makes some adjustments to him. If he does start off hot, can he adjust back? We shall see. He might be a trade candidate at the halfway point of the season if he gets off to a torrid start. But look, we should be so lucky that that's the case for Josh Young. Welsh, who is your third baseman of choice?
And I like that one too, just because I've been trying to give him a little bit of a pass just on all of that missed time. Mine, I'm actually going with another young guy we'll probably talk about here in a little bit as well. Going with Jordan Walker. And he's not going to play third base this year, which is hilarious unless there's some injury that goes down, but he will qualify everywhere. And I'm going with Jordan Walker off of just a phenomenal season last year, 19 homers, 22 stolen bases in Double-A, went to the Arizona Fall League, was great again, a sub 22% K rate, hit over 300. And the Cardinals are legit thinking about giving him the opportunity to break camp. And one of the big things why it's a sleeper as well is his ADP is just still low. You know, some of these rookies are starting to move up. Miguel Vargas moving up. Grayson Rodriguez moving up. Why? Because they're already given spots by their team. Jordan Walker is kind of on that precipice. This reminds me exactly of Julio Rodriguez last year, where we were in that February time and it was like, are we really going to give him? And then the team just committed to Julio. If they do, Jordan Walker's going to skyrocket. He had around a 250 ADP on the overall, if you want to look at like even NFBC or FantasyPros data, which uses NFBC from January 1st on, if we're just looking at NFBC for a minute, 229. So he's already moved up around 30 spots. That's going to move up 100 spots if he is guaranteed a spot. So Jordan Walker is a sleeper. Get him while you can.
Yeah, he is at 229 overall right now. Josh Young, 213. I'm going to throw a comp out there on Jordan Walker too, from watching him recently too. Just batting wise, to me, reminds me a little of Jermaine Dye. I know that's not that long ago for some people,
I can
but
see what you're,
in terms of that quick turnaround swing, bigger guy too. Strong lower half, a little Jermaine Dye in him, I think. So keep an eye on him. I almost picked him, Welsh. So I'm glad you did at third base. But I was like, does that count? Because he's really not going to play there. Way to bend the rules as always. All right, Frank, give me your third baseman of sleeper choice in 2023.
I've got to say, first and foremost, I love the names that you guys threw out there. I'll be talking about Jordan Walker a little bit later on as well. Third base is a terrible position this year. If you don't get one in the first 2 rounds, then you probably just want to wait and then target these names that all these gents are giving you. One thing I like to do is take a veteran and a young upside guy. So take a Jordan Walker or a Josh Young with Justin Turner, who's now going over to the Boston Red Sox. Had a bit of a down year last year, but he finished very strong. His final 42 games, he hit 318, 5 homers, 14 doubles, and 887 OPS. And if you play in a points league or any type of OBP format, now 6 years in a row for Justin Turner with a walk rate over 9% and a strikeout rate under 17%. So I don't think he's going to hit 25 home runs anymore, but can he hit 15 to 20 home runs with a really good batting average, batting cleanup for the Red Sox? So RBI and run opportunities will be there as well. Yeah, I think he can do that. And I think you can pair him with one of these young upside third basemen as well.
I love that approach. I think that's very wise. All right, shortstop. Who's the sleeper in the infield?
I'm going back to another prospect here, and it's Ezequiel Tovar with the Colorado Rockies. He's simply going too late for an everyday Rockies player, let alone one that comes with a lot of prospect pedigree. So 71 games last year between AA and AAA. Tovar hit .319 with 14 homers, 17 steals, and a .927 OPS. He got 9 games in at the end of the season with the Rockies as a 21-year-old, and he's just flat out a good hitter, and now he gets to play in Coors Field as well. .283 career batting average in the minors, never had a strikeout rate above 21.7%. So Tovar starts the year on opening day with the Rockies. I think he can go 15-10 with a good batting average. And if everything works out, maybe he's like a 2015 guy. So love where he's going right now in drafts. Ezequiel Tovar.
Now, another prospect for you, Welsh, as well. And I think I've got one too in the shortstop category. Who's yours?
Yeah, Frank is going to like this one. I'm going with Oswalt Peraza with the New York Yankees. Looks like he's got the gig, and that's kind of maybe the most important thing in here. Oswalt Peraza, really good minor league season, putting up power numbers, putting up big stolen base numbers. He came up to the majors with the Yankees, hit over 300, stole a couple bases, hit a homer. Those are all really, really good early signs. There's nothing like analytically right now we would go and pick on that he did fantastic, but I mean, great contact with solid power numbers in that ballpark with the confidence of that team. And there's already a lot of chatter going on around those camps that he is starting to open some eyes. And like Volpe's not on the 40-man roster, so I don't know if Volpe is going to push him. Maybe midseason, Gleyber Torres moves off, Volpe comes up. Peraza's just not going to lose the gig. You might get low case 15-15, but you got a legit shot in the 2020 range. You don't want to get crazy about it, but it's just really super cheap sleeper option at this position where there are so many great names. You've got to dig deeper. And this is that deeper digging name of 16 plus great shortstops are already out there. This is a guy that is completely an afterthought at this point that you can get as a middle infield spot. So I'm going to pick Oswalt Peraza with the New York Yankees.
Another guy who I think is an afterthought is my guy, C.J. Abrams, who's going to, again, play every day. I would have
picked him, by the way.
I mean, I just don't get this. I'm looking at the ADP for Abrams. He's the 28th shortstop off the board. There's no universe. If he plays 100 games, he's not going to give you double-digit steals. That's just not going to happen. The batting average, we could talk about if that's going to be there. Is he going to hit 250 or in that range? Okay, fine. But there's range of outcomes with him, so there's risk. But there's very little risk in terms of the ADP to take him because not that long ago, this was a very sought-after big-time prospect in the Padres system. And now people sour because he's going to, the Washington Nationals. He's going to be playing there. But can we not forget in the minor leagues, he had an 896 OPS in his career. Can we not forget that? I mean, this guy is no joke. So let's put aside the fact that the Nationals are going to be the dregs and lose 100 games. And let's instead just talk about the fantasy perspective. Is he going to play every day? Yeah. Is he going to be allowed to fail? Yes. That's a good thing. Hopefully he doesn't fail. He succeeds. But the price is so good for a return on investment there. Somebody I like more in roto leagues than in points leagues, but a player I think you invest in either way. So those are our sleepers. Let's talk about the busts at catcher. Frank, let's start you off here. Who is your catcher bust of 23?
Yeah, it's going to be a Travis d'Arnaud for me, dog. I'm not going to be drafting him this year. And I think that he's dropped an ADP since the Sean Murphy trade. I don't think that he's dropped enough. I think he's still being drafted as a high-end catcher too. I just don't see how he's going to play enough. I know that they have the DH available. They also have Marcell Ozuna and Eddie Rosario on that roster. And it's not like Travis d'Arnaud's bat is so good where you need to get him at bats as the designated hitter. So he'll be a backup, and he's been serviceable for fantasy in the past. Kind of wish the Braves would just trade him somewhere else and he gets an opportunity to play. But as of now, that's not going to happen. So Travis d'Arnaud, not for me.
100% agreement. Welsh, who's your catcher bust of 23?
Yeah, I think that's, by the way, just the Braves have talked about openly giving him that DH gig, but it's right. There are a couple guys in there and he's still being drafted a little bit too high. I struggle with this one, and I'm going to come back to our bust episode that Pisapia and I did because I primarily play in one catcher leagues. I agree with Travis d'Arnaud. Picking late closers, I think is really difficult in saying, are they bust? So I'm going to just do this again if you guys didn't hear, and I hate it because now I'm really going to it's going to be tied to me. And I've had multiple run-ins with this guy in fantasy years.
Own it,
Dalton Varsho. I'm going back with Dalton Varsho. I just don't like the ADP. I don't like a top 45 pick on any catcher. I don't like the lefty split issues that he might have. I don't like the downtick as far as the batting average goes overall. He's built for some regression in a not as hitter-friendly ballpark environment where he also struggles against lefties. But, hey, listen, there's a great team around him. He might still be awesome. I just find it really hard that he's going to be able to bring back top 50 overall value, especially when you look at it compared to the other catchers. I think there are some good sleeper catcher options right in the middle. So that heavy investment to me is built around, hey, he's going to get a little bit more playing time because he's an outfielder and he's going to steal more bases. But you know what? More bases are being stolen by catchers every single year over. So Dalton Varsho, I'm sorry, Toronto. I love you.
I hope he wins MVP and the next year he's on the cover of the video game and they call it MLB The VAR Show. All right, my catcher is MJ Melendez, who I think a lot of people are going to look to and just run to the power. But as Welsh was kind of saying there, Welsh mentioned before, I think you can wait a little bit longer. Guys like Stevenson, guys like William Contreras, and get that same power a little bit later. I mean, between pick number 115 where Melendez is and then pick like 159 where Stevenson is. Even guys like Danny Jansen, I think are going to be okay at catcher. I think you've got some options there. So I just don't want to reach for this player. So it's not, look, the batting average is a problem too. The lack of contact sometimes can be a problem. That's something that, again, scares me. I think there's a little bit more downside than people realize. I'm a little sad now because my first base bust is actually Rowdy Tellez, just because, again, he has to repeat it now. And he did so much of that great work. It was such a good run for him. But then there was some downtime too, and he's a little bit of a streaky player. That's my only thing. I like the guy. Of course, I'm rooting for him because he's a bigger dude too. I love that. But Rowdy Tellez to me is just one of those players.
Those fat guys, extra boost.
Can't get enough of it. You know that. Alek Manoah is my favorite guy. But I feel like this. You have to understand, I don't want to draft him thinking I'm going to get a repeat. If you get something close to it, great. But if you're counting on the repeat season, I think that's just slightly dangerous because I think it's an outlier. That's it. Welsh, first base, who is your bust?
There's another one I struggled with, and I'm going to tell you, I really like this player a lot in general. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm disliking him. The Bat X projections change, and we shouldn't build everything off of projections or anything like that. But Vinny Pasquantino with the Kansas City Royals was a darling of drafts early on, and very, very early on because of some crazy steamer projections. And the Bat X came in. I did an episode on In This League with Derek Carty, kind of going through the Bat X projections. And Vinny Pasquantino was one of the most overrated hitters on their system. 16 homers with a 270 batting average. Here's kind of my logic, and it kind of comes back to the Varsho thing. Can Vinny still be good? Yes, of course. Will he live up to the expectations of where he's being drafted? That I don't necessarily know. And part of it is also maybe the guys that are being built around, where people are reaching. Vinny Pasquantino is going off as the 7th first baseman right now. And listen, I kind of like Tellez. I like Nate Lowe. Christian Walker is in there. And I think Jose Abreu is no doubt a better price. Yet Vinny Pasquantino is very fun and exciting because he's young, his Italian name. Hey, look at this, look at that. But it's a bad team context. RBIs and runs are going to be low. If the homers are high, that's great. You're going to get 2 categories. But I think you can get higher stats or the exact same outcome from Nate Lowe later in drafts. So based on the capital you got to spend on Vinny Pasquantino, unfortunately, the Italian breakfast is not what we're having tonight.
Well, more on Nate Lowe later in the show from me. CJ Cron, Frank, that's your guy who's a bust. Why in 23?
Well, aside from the fact that you can't play this guy when he's on the road because his home road splits are ridiculously bad because he's a Rockies player. But overall, just some things that worry me. Getting a little bit older, he's entering his age 33 season. Batting average went from 281 in 2021 to 257 last year. The strikeout rate went from 21% to 26%. The walk rate dropped a ton from 11% to around 7%. And he completely fell off in the second half, hit 197 with a 604 OPS. Didn't hit the ball as hard during that time. His barrel rate went down. So the age, the splits, he's had injury concerns in the past. It's just too much going on at a position that's very deep. So I'd rather wait and take Anthony Rizzo or Rowdy Tellez or even Christian Walker, who's going right around him. So just not for me this year, CJ Cron.
Yeah, I can tell you the older I get, the harder it is for me to do splits too. It is a 955 OPS at home last year for Cron and a 619 OPS on the road. Yikes. Just in case you were wondering at home what that split was. Let's go to
hashtag yucky.
Hashtag yuck. All right. Second base, Frank, who's your guy to stay away from?
Yeah, it's going to be Thairo Estrada, who last year I was waiting for him to fall off. And it just never happened. He had a really good season for the San Francisco Giants. He hit 260 with 14 home runs, 21 steals. I'm basically not trusting the power here. He had 14 home runs on 18 barrels. That's 78%. Aaron Judge was 58%. Kyle Schwarber was 60%. We're talking about Thairo Estrada. So I think he's more of like an 8 to 10 home run guy. Maybe he'll run. He does make a lot of contact, so that's good for him. He also has these very big left-right splits. So last year against lefties, he hit 283 with an 834 OPS. Against righties, he hit 250 with a 674 OPS. And the Giants are a team, they're pretty analytically driven, and they like to, go with platoons. If Thairo Estrada is not hitting well against righties for the first couple of months, who's to say this guy doesn't just fall into the short side of a platoon? He's going pretty late in drafts, but I don't think he's going to come anywhere close to what he did last year. So Thairo Estrada, fade for me.
Welsh, I assume you're going to stay on brand since you attacked Varsho. You got to attack India next, right?
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about it a little bit, just like incredibly low hit, bottom 5% of the league in hard hit, the 28.8% last year. His average EVs were super low. You don't want to read. It's weird because he actually had a higher max EV than the previous year, but his overall average EVs were 85, which is atrocious. So again, it's not a perfect science because they're going to put everything in their grounders and stuff, but just hitting the ball exceptionally less. He was worse against fastballs than he had ever been. Off-speed pitches were an instant out. So as much as we look at some of the injury stuff, maybe it's going to play in. His timing and rhythm was completely off. He could not hit off-speed stuff, and he was worse against fastballs. So I already talked about it. Just kind of worried, especially when he becomes the crutch of, I'm going to take this guy because I missed out for the bounce back. But, he is cheap enough that it's a little bit of a reach on a bust, I suppose.
All right, another guy that, again, I like him if you can get him with a discount, but it doesn't look like you're getting too much of one right now in Jorge Polanco of the Minnesota Twins at second base. Just not enough for me. The ECR in him is 127 at FantasyPros. ADP is at 143. I mean, just looking at this position and some of the shots you could take a little bit later, I think I just prefer those shots at the end of the day. I'd rather take a flyer on Ketel Marte 30 picks later and see what he gives me, because Polanco is a player. I know he was hurt last year. Give him the benefit of the doubt there. But I think we're all going to be chasing that huge home run season he had in 21, and I just don't know if that's the smartest thing to be doing. And he's been a player that's been really hard to gauge, all over the map, different times, different injuries, did have the PD suspension too. So just a lot of question marks there with Polanco. So to me, that's just a player I don't like the price on yet. If he falls in drafts, I will take a shot on him. Max Muncy at third base is my bust too. And this is just a player I think is maxed out. I feel like we saw the best of Max Muncy. It was a fun time, and now it's time not to live in the past. And I want to just kind of move along here. And there's a part of me that is a little worried here at the Dodgers as they continue to, kind of reshape who they are in these years ahead. Max Muncy, look, we all know if you're drafting him for power, that's fine, but you can't let the batting average be where it was. It's such a giant albatross. So for me, Max Muncy's a player that I think there's just too much positivity on, not enough negativity where everybody just wants to say, oh, he'll bounce back, it'll be fine. I'm not there yet, and I'm not there with the ADP. Welsh, who's your third base bust?
So I gotta say, I don't love this. I found this to be the hardest one because I don't think the position is that great. So I kind of end up staring at these guys and I'm just like, is there really a bust in there? The one that came out, and it doesn't really work in my favor a whole lot, is Matt Chapman. I just don't. I have 0 shares of Matt Chapman in anything I've done this entire offseason. Yeah. Though to his credit, I will give you, big hard hit numbers. Average EV is up. Hard hit was top 3% of the league. It was very pull heavy last year, but Baseball Savant page red as can be, 97 percentile hard hit, max EV 87, XB or XWOBA 78%. But you've still seen max EV decreases for 3 straight years. That's gone down, and this was the first year in quite a few years that you had the XBA and the batting average not lining up into big XBA numbers, boosting up from the batting average, hitting 200 and having an XBA of 230. I don't trust Matt Chapman in where I have to pay for him as a number 1 third baseman. And I actually just think there are cheaper options. He's going inside the top 150 if you look at FantasyPros ADP right now. And I would, at that point, when I'm stuck with a player like that, I've already talked about Jose Miranda I really love, but I'd rather wait and take a Justin Turner, like Frank said, or Josh Young, like you said, Joe. I just don't. I think there's tier drops that happen, and this is not one that I want to play in. If I've missed my opportunity, I'm moving past Matt Chapman.
I feel like we're in the same wavelength here because Muncie's the number 9 third baseman off the board. Chapman's the number 10. I'd rather wait for Ty France. I'd rather take a shot on Jose Miranda. I'd rather take a shot on Young, or, talking about Walker too, if he qualifies at third base in your league. Like this, there's just a better approach. I think Frank laid out the perfect approach. Take one of the young guys with upside, take one of the old fart guys like Justin Turner, who's just free, and then go run. All right, third base, who is your bust? And this is a guy that I talked about as a bust too, so I like that somebody else is mentioning it also.
I agree with the Welsh, man. It's tough to find a bust at third base. Can we just call the entire position a bust this year? Third base.
Sure.
Just don't even draft. Let's forget about that position. Anyway,
I think it's good for like 8 guys, and then
take
after that,
Machado
it's
or
like
Riley and move on. And
Yes.
don't take
hit it early.
Yeah.
Brian, get one in the first or second round if you can. Brian Hayes is the bust here. I know that he gives you speed, out of position steals. He gives you 20 steals, one of 4 third base eligible players to do that last year. What else does he do? He hit 244 with 7 home runs. He was awesome back in 24 games in the shortened 2020. Since then, he is batting 249 with a 356 slugging percentage. That is tied for 6th lowest in baseball since the start of 2021. Brian Hayes hits the ball extremely hard. He also hits it on the ground a lot, 52% ground ball rate. He's got a 4.8 career barrel rate. He just does not pull the ball. He does not put it in the air. And as a result, he just cannot tap into any of that power. He's still young enough where he can figure it out, but we have no signs of that happening yet. And I'm not going to bank on it happening this season either.
All right, Frank, your shortstop bust. Who is it for 23?
Shortstop is the complete opposite of third base. It's awesome. It's loaded with a bunch of fun players, especially in the middle rounds. One of them that I don't think that I'm going to be targeting is Dansby Swanson for a couple of reasons. He's coming off a career year with the Atlanta Braves. Now he goes over to the Chicago Cubs. Big downgrade in terms of the lineup. Last year, the Braves were 3rd in runs scored. The Cubs were 22nd last year. They should improve. They made some moves this offseason. I still don't think they're going to be that good. And there's just some things like the BABIP spiked to 348 last year. So I think the batting average is probably going to come back down to earth. And speaking of coming back down to earth, that's exactly what happened in the second half for Dansby Swanson. He hit 254 with a 702 OPS in the second half last year. I think he's a better player than that, but I don't think he's as good as the player he showed over the course of the entire season. So I'm expecting a little bit of regression on Dansby Swanson this year.
And that's my guy too, Joe. Like I was going through the position. It's so deep. It is unlike third base where you go and you look. And I think Xander Bogaerts was another one that I kind of wanted to throw out. I would have thrown out. Though in the Black Book, I wrote about some very interesting stuff where some of the X-Slug numbers are still high up there. And you go into the context of where he's going to be with this Padres team. Maybe a little bit more offense overall. RBI run numbers might push the power to kind of be irrelevant to us if they can go up. But you look at his position and you're just like, where is there not value? The top end is so much more locked down that Dansby Swanson was mine as well. Dansby and Xander Bogaerts, both as top 10 shortstops when the guys behind him are guys like Tim Anderson, O'Neal Cruz, Wander Franco. I think it's really hard to stomach like a high-end cost. And some of this is coming about cost basis here, but Dansby was mine and Frank said it really well.
Yeah, and like new spot with the Cubs there. I mean, it's just like everyone's looking at the Cubs like, oh, they spent some money. Yeah, I understand, but it's ugly money. Don't think that it's going to be a good team because it's not. My guy's the same guy from last year. It was Javier Baez. Nobody wanted to listen to me last year, so I'm just going to remind everybody, just because they're changing the ballpark around, I don't care. This is not going to save Javi Baez. There's not enough lineup protection. There's not enough around him. It doesn't matter. So don't go getting fooled again. Now, we're going to run through our infield must-have guys. I'm going to run through my guys first. Some of them we've talked about already, so I'm not going to belabor the points, and a few other ones we'll mention here as well. My catcher in must-have is Dalton Varsho because I just like to spite the Welsh. I mean, really, that's just as simple as that.
I hate that I keep bringing him up. Find me another catcher that I can hate on. I don't want to. I like him.
I know. I like him in this lineup.
Him, by the way.
It's not a ballpark factor thing. It's a lineup thing. He's moving to a much better lineup. I think that's going to benefit him. Nathaniel Lowe is my first base must-have. I love this guy. Was there a quieter good season, guys, than Nate Lowe had? I mean, I feel like nobody cares. Nobody wants to talk about it. This dude was solid. 27 bombs, drove in runs. Again, you get Josh Young back in that lineup along with Seager, along with Marcus Semien. I think the Texas Rangers win total is going to be fascinating. I can't wait to bet the over on it. I'm telling you right now. Andres Gimenez is my second baseman of choice. Love the power speed combination. Going to give him some batting average. Another player that I think just isn't getting enough buzz. Welsh, I give you a lot of credit. You were a big supporter of his last year, and I was behind you on the bandwagon. You pulled me onto it. I'm full force with you there. Jimenez is my second baseman. I love where you're getting him this year. He is the sixth guy, but I think that that's pretty much a steal where you're getting him because what he offers, and there's room for growth. Gunnar Henderson is my third base must-have. Love the talent, love what I see there. I think the Orioles are starting to turn things around. I think guys like Henderson are going to be a big part of it. We mentioned third base being a problem. Give me Gunnar Henderson over Muncy and Chapman any day of the week. It's not close for me. I'll take the upside. And the last one for me, it's shortstop. It's a bigger name. It's Francisco Lindor, because once again, I feel like Lindor is just not getting enough respect in the market because shortstop has that, it's deep, but when we go into years like this, we go, oh, this is a deep position. And then at the end we go, boy, really wasn't as deep as we thought it was. Lindor is a solid player who gives you everything and a really good team and a really good spot. He is much closer to 1 overall in that position than he is to 10. And you're getting him somewhere in the middle. I think that's something to remember. Welsh, run through your must-have infielders for 2023.
All right, Wilson Contreras is my catcher. I love the destination change, crazy EV numbers last year, 116 max EV. He was top 6% in xWOBA last year. Hard hit was up there. He is just consistent, and he's cheaper. He's still not expensive at catcher. So why we pay the prices for Dalton Varsho? I'd even say Adley Rutschman. MJ Melendez is going ahead of him. I want Wilson Contreras on all of my teams. Thank you very much. He's a must-have. I will say the next two, Frank kind of gets them because he put them before me on here, but I completely agree. These were the guys that jumped out. My first baseman is Jose Abreu. I absolutely love the team context change of going to the Astros, hitting where he's going to. I'm hopeful that we're going to find a few more homers there. I think 100 is in the works based on hitting around Jordan Alvarez and Jose Altuve.
I like that.
He was a steal early in draft season when he was going around 120. Now he's going way, way higher. Love him. Jazz Chisholm is my number one second baseman this year. I'm kind of an island on that, and I think he's a must-have also because he comes at a cheaper cost than the other three guys, cheaper than Ozzie Albies, so I want Jazz Chisholm for sure. I didn't even notice you had it. Gunnar Henderson, I completely agree. He's a must-have. He's one of these rookies that you can get at not the crazy cost. He comes about 20 picks lower than Corbin Carroll right now. Going to hit in the middle of that Orioles lineup. A little bit worried about what we already saw in the suppressed power numbers with the Orioles. 3 of the top 10 guys were on the list of the most suppressed and expected home runs, Santander, Mancini, and Ryan Mountcastle. Hopefully that's not going to be a big case and take away from Gunnar Henderson or anything like that. And then finally, O'Neal Cruz is going to be my shortstop hilariously on this show from me last year. But he is the 10th shortstop on FantasyPros ADP right now. He comes at a great cost with first round potential. If you care about projections, of course, projections should be in some potential world of yours when you're looking at overall building your drafts. And O'Neal Cruz's stats are reminiscent of guys like Kyle Tucker if he were to get to that expectation. And projections are built around kind of a median line here. I think the power stolen base numbers are ridiculously stupid. I would be comfortable getting Cruz as my middle infielder if I already got a shortstop because I think the upside is that big. He's a must-have for me. Those are my must-haves.
All right. Very good list there. Frank, close us out. Who are your must-have infielders for 2023?
All right, I'll start things off with my catcher, and that is Sean Murphy, who made big improvements in terms of the plate discipline last year. Got the strikeout rate down to a career best 20%. And you look at the lineup change, the A's were 29th in runs scored last year. The Braves were 3rd. Also, his career splits in Oakland Coliseum. He hit .213 with a .368 slug. Everywhere else in Sean Murphy's career, .256 batting average, .484 slug. So I'm expecting a big breakout season from Sean Murphy. Welsh talked about it. Jose Abreu going over to the Houston Astros. It's just no better place to land than the Houston Astros. The power was down last year, only 15 home runs, still crushed the ball last year. Jose Abreu did. And if you look at the StatCast numbers, if he played every game in the Minute Maid Field, last year, he would have hit 22 home runs with that short porch in left field. So it's just a perfect marriage for Jose Abreu. Second base, I also agree with the Wells. I've got Jazz Chisholm here. Last year, he hit 14 home runs and 12 steals in only 60 games. That is a 35 homer, 30 steal pace. Improved the plate discipline last year. Crushes the ball. Other second basemen, like these guys, do not hit the ball as hard as Jazz Chisholm. He's like one of the best when it comes to average exit velocity and barrel rate. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got to stay on the field. That's the biggest issue for Jazz Chisholm. Third base. Welsh mentioned it. You're noticing a theme here, right? Welsh is a pretty smart dude. Jordan Walker. is someone you mentioned earlier. We saw him out at first pitch Arizona Welsh. The first thing I noticed, this kid is fast. He's 6'5". He is huge, and he runs like a gazelle. 22 steals in the minors last year. I think that's an underrated part of his game that people might not even realize. I think he can be a 5-category contributor as soon as this season if he's up on opening day. And the best for last, Corey Seager. He is the player that I want most in fantasy baseball this season. Career high 33 home runs last season, only hit 245. He lost 25 hits to the shift last year. His expected batting average, according to StatCast, was 283. So you're telling me we're going to get someone that can hit 280 plus with 30 plus home runs, good counting stats in the 5th or 6th round of drafts this year? Yeah, I'll take that every day of the week. I know shortstop is loaded. I don't care that he doesn't steal bases. Give me that elite 4-category production from Corey Seager this upcoming season. He's my favorite. He's the one I want most.
Yeah, I love it. Making me feel good about keeping him this year in my keeper league too. I love what you're saying there. I agree with you. That shift is going to change so many things this year. It's going to make baseball a little bit more fun again. I'm looking forward to that. So we want to hear from you. If you're watching on YouTube, and you should be, if you haven't already, subscribe to Fantasy Pros on YouTube, youtube.com/FantasyPros. Go ahead, drop your picks. Who are your busts? Who are your sleepers? Who are your must-have infielders? I want to see all your lists out there. So show me your lists. Go out there. Drop them here in the comments on the YouTube channel. Of course, go follow our good friend on social media on the Twitter machine at Roto_Frank. Frank Stampfl, always a pleasure. Always great to see you, my friend. Great stuff as always. The Welsh, always great to see you. Always great to have all of our crowd here hanging out with us in the shows. We got the outfield preview coming up pretty soon and a mock draft episode also tomorrow. So check that out as well. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Frank and Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.